Hello and welcome to this recording of the Alumni Greetings, a monthly e-newsletter made by Trinity Bible College and Graduate School's Alumni Office here in Allendale, North Dakota. In this recording, our Alumni Director Brian Jacobson talks with alumni Jaren and Becca. In this conversation, they share experiences that they had as students here at Trinity and also their time interculturally so far. We are so excited to have you join us. Let's jump right in.
Well, hello, everybody. In particular, everybody, Jaren and Becca. It is good to have you here. Just as a means of introduction, we're going to just introduce you two as Jaren and Becca. You're Trinity alumni. You have roots in Montana, I believe, right? And
Yes.
my name is, for the sake of everyone watching, my name is Brian Jacobson. I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Advancement and Alumni Relations at Trinity. And so, yes, I'm joined today by Jaren and Becca. And so thanks for joining me, guys. It's great to see you again. We are super proud of y'all as alumni. Let's start. We're going to talk about a couple of things today. Just a little bit about your story, how you came to Trinity, and why, and what God did in your life when you're here, and then your call and preparation. What is it that you're feeling led to do, and how did that come about? And then just talk a little bit more about your experience serving and doing what you're doing, where you're doing it. So that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Great. Well, tell us, give us a little update on, who you are and then yeah, your Trinity story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Becca and this is Jaren and we're both from Montana and I actually started going to Trinity just I did the Pack Your Bags program
Hmm.
and I didn't really know where I was headed, but I felt like God wanted me to work and serve in another cultural context. And I felt like Pack Your Bags would maybe give me a little more guidance. Like maybe while I was there, I'd get some insight into what that would actually look like in the long term. And so I did that year, and I really enjoyed Trinity. And after that, I took a break and I went home, but I missed Trinity so bad. And I felt like it was such a good school. And they had like a really good program to train for the kind of work that I knew that I wanted to do. And so, yeah, it was through me that I think Jaren ended up deciding to go to.
Mhm.
If you want to share.
Yeah. Like Becca said, it was initially her interest in the Pack Your Bags program that put Trinity on our radar. And then we both did some internships locally at our home church. And after that, we were kind of considering what would prepare us best for living on the field and just proclaiming the truth of Jesus, specifically in a Muslim culture. And we just thought that the effort that Trinity was putting into their intercultural studies program was really, really good. And we had applied at multiple schools, some bigger, like big name schools, whatever, got scholarships. But when it all boiled down, we felt like we would get the most out of our experience at Trinity. And looking back, we definitely don't regret it. Like
Yeah.
we, to this day, after being on the field, still feel like what we learned at Trinity was very valuable. And yeah, so that's kind of how we got involved there and how we viewed our experience. It was really good, very valuable. So
Now, did the two of you know each other before Becca, before you came to Trinity and were part of the Pack Your Bags program?
Yes. So we have gone to the same church since we were like in middle school. So we knew each other. And we actually started dating right after high school. So I came to Pack Your Bags and we were still dating, but we were long distance for that year. And so, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, known each other a long time.
Yeah.
And now you have a child. Tell us
Yes.
about tell us about that.
Yeah, so in October of 2023, we had our son Adoniram Bear, and he's just awesome. He's just a cute, lighthearted little guy. He does have some medical challenges, and that definitely played a really big role in our work and ministry. And we can maybe get into that later. But yeah, he's just so full of life and joy, and we absolutely love being parents. So,
Quite an honor. Quite an honor, isn't it? To be responsible for that little life.
mhm.
Yeah.
So we commend you for, and we live in a day and age when not everybody is, having kids isn't as popular as it maybe used to be in the realm of adulting.
Mhm.
And so we commend you for doing that. Um, tell me a little bit about now, you've described your story and journey to get to Trinity and a little bit about your time there, but take a deeper dive. Um, what happened inside of you to cultivate what you felt um, God was leading you to do and be involved in ministry?
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to work interculturally in a different place, but
Mm.
I didn't know what kind of work I wanted to do or where in the world. And so when I was here for Pack Your Bags, I was really praying about that. And um, we had to take a class that just talked about like percentages of religions around the world and like what the actual statistics were. Um, and I just remember God like moving in my heart very deeply. It was like a week. I think it was Go Week, and so it was like every single day they were talking about this. And after chapel, I would just go into the prayer chapel and just cry. And it was like a week long, and I just felt this like stirring in my spirit that was pushing me to work in a place where it's really like needed, where Jesus's light doesn't shine like as much. There's not as many people shining that light. And so um, that was one thing that the Lord really did it through the education, like through the classes. I just learned about his heart for the world, and that really impacted me and the direction that I decided to take with my life. And then another really valuable moment that happened for me was when our Pack Your Bags team was in Israel. We visited the Temple Mount, and that was like my first time visiting a mosque, and also just my first time even meeting Muslims because I live in rural Montana and there's no Muslims here. And so I just remember we were walking around the Temple Mount, and these cute, like I think they're like three young Muslim girls ran up to me like giggling and smiling, and they were like, "Can we get a selfie with you?" Because I was an American and so I must be like famous or something. And I just like trying to smile in these photos, but I was like on the verge of tears because I just felt like I loved these girls more than I had ever loved someone I'd never met before. It was just like an instant feeling. And I felt the Lord like speak to me about it because it like physically we were in Israel and we were close to where the presence of God historically has always been. But these girls standing right there on the Temple Mount were spiritually so far from his presence. And that was really impactful for me. And I still, even after that moment, I didn't really know that I wanted to specifically live in a Muslim country yet. But that was definitely, I think, what started it. And it grew from there as I started to research and learn and walk forward in obedience. And I realized that that was something I really had a passion for.
Okay. Jaren?
Yeah. When I was in high school, my greatest ambition was to climb Mount Everest. I wanted to climb in the Himalayas, and just that was my entire dream. But God kind of shifted my focus from the mountains to sort of just the people and the cultures and all of the, I don't know, I guess the people side of things, the human side of
Yeah.
things over in that part of the world. And it was kind of a similar eye-opening experience to what Becca um, experienced. And I just realized how far these people were from God and how very little access they had to truth. And so that kind of was the thing that started it all off. But even after I felt that calling, I still had harbored a lot of resentment towards Muslims, just I suppose culturally. They're not looked upon very well, especially in rural America. And so I had a lot of that, just like, no, Muslims aren't worth it. I mean, I remember actually saying to my sister, like, we just need to eradicate the entire Muslim population of the world because their philosophy is too dangerous. It's just not worth keeping them around. And kind of through Becca's experience with those girls on the Temple Mount and her encouraging me to take a deeper look at things, I felt like God spoke to my heart saying, like, who do you think you are to judge humanity? Like, if you look at how passionate they are for this lie they follow, imagine the zeal they would have if they followed my truth.
Mm.
And just now seeing what I've seen, like getting to talk with Muslims who've decided to follow Jesus, that has just been so true. The zeal they have when they follow the truth is unbelievable. They're some of the most vibrant and beautiful believers you'll ever meet. So it was really, that was kind of the process for me.
So then tell us about, Becca, you've shared some of the preparation in your classes. What else really helped prepare your mindset for serving in another culture? Why during your time at Trinity, or maybe not even at Trinity, but what else helped prepare your mindset for serving peoples in another culture?
Um, yeah, I think that something that we thought a lot about before going to college is like we were so passionate, we were young, and we were like, we just want to go live overseas right now and do it right now. Why do we have to go to college?
Yeah.
And we felt like resilience is really important. There are a lot of workers who go into the field and they wear out for some reason, or they don't have the foundation that they needed spiritually, theologically, just emotionally, all these things. They didn't have the foundation that they needed to last on the field. And we felt God speaking to us that if we're going to do this long term, we need a strong foundation, and that's going to take a little bit of waiting. Even though we want to go right now, we're going to have to wait and prepare. And so, yeah, just a lot of our classes at Trinity prepared us. There was one class we took called Preparing to Live Interculturally, which just talked about like culture stress and transitions and all the things that you undergo when you move to another culture. And I found myself constantly thinking back to that class during our last term. And while a lot of my friends didn't have that knowledge that it was going to be so hard, they still made it through. But I felt like I really benefited from the knowledge that I was like, I already went into it knowing I'm going to go through these different struggles and it's going to feel all these certain ways. And I really felt like, just that class in particular really prepared me. And there were a lot of classes that we took that I constantly have thought back to and been really appreciative of, and the way that they've prepared me just to like approach difficult theological questions with people who don't know anything about the Bible. So yeah, that's one thing that I would say.
Yeah. The question was before Trinity or during?
While you were at Trinity,
Okay.
what helped you to cultivate that and prepare you for serving in an intercultural context?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely would second the specific class that Becca mentioned, the Preparing to Live Interculturally one, just had a lot of information that was helpful later on. And the class Theology of Missions was really helpful because it provided a framework for understanding why it was so biblically important and kind of connected the entire story, the meta narrative of the Bible, to the theme of going out into all of the world and preaching the good news to all creation. And it was really cool. It was super cool to see that. And like Becca said, it prepared us for difficult questions later. And just physically, I think that the location of Trinity, it was actually kind of helpful for some people who maybe weren't used to living without access to all of the busy stuff of the city life in America. It's remote and it gives you time to think and time to learn how to live life and feel like it's meaningful without needing to find all of the means of entertainment that some people are used to.
Yeah.
It's a simple environment. I remember some of our professors said it's almost a monastic environment in some senses. It's a decent drive to a, a bigger town, I guess. And I think that's helpful just practically when you're living interculturally. What you're going to be able to access immediately is going to be pretty limited. And if you've never had to face that on any scale, that's an extra steep learning curve. And I think, yeah, in a small way, that was kind of a little half step in.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, for some people more than others. But
I'm sorry, Becca, go ahead. Do you have more you wanted to add?
I would just thought I should mention that also the opportunity to do a semester abroad was really helpful.
yes, yes.
We both did a semester in Egypt, and we minored in Middle East studies, and we took those
Cool.
classes in Egypt while we were there, and learned all kinds of things that definitely prepared us to live in a Muslim context later in life. So that semester was really helpful.
And you did that as husband and wife. You went together on that internship, right?
No, we went at the same time, but we were not. We were still
Okay.
just dating
Okay.
separately, but we did get engaged there. So
Yeah.
Oh,
She was in the single girls housing and I was in the single guys housing. And having just some really high maintenance roommates made me realize that this would be a lot better if I was married and I was just with
think.
yeah. So that was when the time came and we got engaged in Egypt, which was super cool.
Oh, I think I do remember now you all becoming engaged in Egypt, and I'd forgotten that. Let's talk then, transition a little bit into now your time. You've done a couple years serving interculturally. Tell us just about that experience. Tell us, share a story or two, just back and forth. I may ask a question or not, but just back and forth, a story. What is it that you were primarily doing in those couple years? I know you definitely have a story with your son. So just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So I guess cumulatively between Egypt and like our internship there and where we served on our last term, it was about 2.5 years that we spent overseas. And so we learned a lot. It was a lot of steep learning curves and it was really fantastic. And there's no doubt in our minds that we were where we were supposed to be at that time. It was purposeful and meaningful, and we were getting to just experience what God had for us and for the people around us in that season and that time. So really, really cool. We were able to learn the local language of this last place we were at, and we got to a decent level of fluency, I would say. And we were able to just share the truth about Jesus and represent him in an area where that just isn't the case very often. And it was cool. You could maybe share your story about meeting that one lady.
yeah,
It was kind of good for showing perspective of what it was like there.
yes. So one of my favorite stories that just I feel like illustrates the issue of access to the gospel is this. So on our last term, we would do intentionally going out and just having conversations with people, talking about big topics, talking about religion, and just sharing what we believe, them sharing what they believe. And it was an intentional thing that we would do weekly. We had time set aside for it. And we would go out in pairs. And so it was me and one of my friends. And we went out and we were looking at the map and we try to go to parts of the city that we don't spend a lot of time in naturally. So we found a library on like the other side of the city that we don't live in. And so we took a taxi and then we walked into this library and it felt off as soon as we were there. We were like, is this actually a public library? There was like a big gate and a guard. And we were like, is there a library in here? And he pointed us to like the back of this big warehouse looking building. We ended up in there and there's just this one lady in this library And she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we're like, "Oh, is this a library?" And she's like, "This is the industrial library for the railroad tracks. And you just only come here if you like work for the railroad and you need like one of these books. And it's not like where you just come and read books." And we were like, oh, well. And so we just talked to her. And we kind of created this friendship with her. And we actually ended up going back there several times and just sitting in her office and drinking tea. And one of the times when we were talking with her, she we were talking about religion, and she got up and was like, "Oh guys, wait, just wait here." And she ran to the back of the library and like came back a few minutes later with the one copy of the Bible that's there, like dusts it off, and she's like opens it to Genesis. And she's like, "Look." And in the margins of the pages in Genesis were all these little question marks. Like every few paragraphs, there'd be another question mark, and then it would keep going. And she said, "I tried to read the Bible. Years ago, I tried to read the Bible and I had all these questions." This version of the Bible that she had was like their version of like King James. It's really hard to understand for them. And she's like, "I had all these questions and I didn't have anyone to ask them. And so I just stopped." And yeah, that to me was like, wow, that's what it looks like to not have access. Because here in America, there are people who don't know the Lord, and it's just as big of a deal. But when they have the questions, they often know where to go. They have a friend, or they live next to a church, or they can just Google it. But there's no one for them to ask. A lot of people, they don't have a Christian friend. They don't know where the nearest church is. And if they try to pursue God, they try to read scripture on their own and they have questions, they don't have anyone to ask. So that was a really impactful moment for me, just illustrating what that actually means. The statistics we hear about so much, that's what it actually means, is that's what it looks like to live in that. So
Yeah. There was one of my favorite stories was when I was at a prayer and fasting conference with just a handful of local believers, and this old man walks in. He was 86 years old, and he looked like he could have been 150. He just was wrinkled, and but he was like standing as tall as he could and regal. And he walked up to the front of the room wearing like really traditional old garb from this people group, and he began to tell his story. And he had been a long time ago, his family immigrated to a country that is now completely blocked off by the government. And that's where his tribe kind of grew up and had their presence. And from a perspective of a Christian who wants to go to a different culture and speak the good news of Jesus, it's probably the hardest place in the entire world to reach someone. Like the government's hostile, the people don't want it, just really difficult place, just geographically also difficult place to access. This guy, when he was in his 80s, fell off a horse, hit his head, got knocked out, and had this vision of Jesus. He had no idea who Jesus even was. But in the vision, he was told this was Jesus. And so he started looking for answers. Some point later, he had another vision of Jesus, and he showed him the scars in his hand and said, "Yes, I am Jesus." And it was very clear. And so he managed to track down just bits and pieces of the narrative of Christianity and ended up becoming a believer. And when he walked into that room, he just kind of by a miracle happenstance was able to cross the border into the country we were in, where his people is originally from, and found this group of believers gathered together and came into the church and told us his story. And it was the first time he had ever gotten to see a group of believers gathered together. Just really crazy. Like if God will go so far as to reach people like this guy, that the hardest person probably in the world to reach. He's an elder in his community, even like old people don't want to change their minds about anything already, let alone in such a crazy situation, all those circumstances leading up to it. It was just so profound. Like God is really doing something in that part of the world. Definitely.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. We don't have a whole lot of time. Want to compact this into something that people will listen to and be encouraged by. So I want to move to just another couple questions before we land the plane here. If you were sitting with some uh, students, college students, high school students, and they said, "Oh man, I want to serve in an intercultural context. I feel like that God's leading me to do that sort of thing." What advice would you give them? If there's one or two, three takeaways that you'd really, really want them to hear. And I know there are people who have been doing what you're doing for many, 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 many more years, but you're coming out of you're familiar with their context. You're that same generational mindset, you know, Gen X, Gen Z, blah, 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 right? What would you tell them?
Yeah, yeah, like you said, there's so much, and there's so much wisdom cumulatively over the years that is really worth listening to. But something that we've been advised to do that was really helpful is to start practicing just spending extravagant time with the Lord. Our team kind of considered it like a tithe of time. So roughly 10% of your waking hours, just give that to the Lord in prayer. And
Wow.
that will just bolster your spirit in a way that nothing else can. No exercise routine, no finding familiarity in the daily life. Like nothing will actually help you as deeply as that will. Um, I think also just being prepared for the hard times. Like we didn't get to really dive into it too deep, but our son had some really scary stuff happen that just ripped our hearts out while we were overseas. And the truth is that kind of thing is not uncommon. People do encounter really difficult things that make you want to give up. The romance of it does fade away. It really does. And you're left with the sense of calling and duty to the Lord. And I would just tell people maybe to focus on that. Like, sure, be excited. Think of the romance and the mystique of a different country, but don't hold that in any way above the priority of your call and the duty that you have to the Lord to see the nations glorify him.
Yeah.
Becca,
So,
anything you'd add to that?
Um, no, I was thinking the same thing, just spending time with the Lord, because, you can have all this training and all this emotional feeling of calling, and you can have so many things that you think are going to keep you on the field, but nothing's going to keep you on the field other than the strength that the Holy Spirit gives you
mhm.
every single day. So learning to practice that before you are in desperate need of it is a good thing. So that was something I was also gonna say. But yeah, and I think that people who want to go into this kind of ministry are sometimes like we were, like really passionate and want to just go immediately. If they think that God wants them to go at all, it must be right now. And I'm not saying wait too long. I've seen people do that too, but prepare and give yourself a good foundation and keep moving forward and don't get stuck somewhere. Obey, but be willing to wait and prepare if you need to, because that's going to serve you in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be careful of who and how you go, who you go with and how you go. I think that some people get excited, like Becca was saying, to just go out and do it. And some people want to go Lone Ranger. And it can be done. It has been done. But the truth is there are some really fantastic organizations like the AGWM that sends people out in teams, and they're just seeing incredible fruit. And the way that people are able to support each other is amazing. And in our case, like potentially it was a life-saving thing that we were able to go through such a fantastic organization. So logistics as well as the spiritual side of things,
Yeah.
so much important just details that you can put thought into. But
Well, knowing the students at Trinity Bible College and your journey there too as well, we know that there are many who come there and it just let's go, and even they're ready to they're ready to jump on the plane right after graduation. You guys didn't even do that. You went back to Montana for a little bit, if I understand correctly, and so we sometimes forget that the Apostle Paul, after his conversion, he went the Arabian desert for 3 years.
Mhm.
Why? Because he needed the Holy Spirit to do some things in him. And he knew the scriptures. I mean, he was well versed in the scriptures, but he needed God to do some things and shape him.
yeah, exactly.
So, hey, I want to ask you a question that we probably didn't prep you for, but I'm always intrigued by, the husband wife thing. How important has that been to each of you? And I know it's kind of a loaded question. You don't say, well, not that big of a deal. No. I mean, but seriously, have the two of you contemplated that and the business of doing this as husband and wife, both of you feeling called? Can you comment on that a little bit? The importance of that to you?
Yeah, that was initially why we started liking each other, like as teenagers, is because we both had this call and we felt like, okay, we are going the same place, so we might as well go together. And I've seen a lot of people, like I have friends who maybe felt a call when they were younger, but then they married someone who didn't and they never went overseas. And that always like bothered me a little bit, even though I know that, God is in control and he probably just was doing something different in them. I didn't ever want that to happen to me. So that was something that I really wanted to prioritize, and that I think that we have helped hold each other accountable to our call, in a lot of ways. Like in seasons when maybe I would feel less enthusiastic, he would keep me accountable to that, and vice versa. And so I think that has been wonderful. And also, there are a lot of single people who go to the field and can do a great job. I do appreciate having him there to walk through the transition with and to understand everything I'm going through, like from the same perspective, and so that is a big help. But also, you can go to the field not married and do a great job. But it is great to feel like you're a team and that you have the support.
Yeah, she nailed it.
Well, Jaren and Becca, I want to just say thank you. And again, on behalf of everyone at Trinity Bible College, I'm talking to you from our president's home, Dr. Paul and Carol Alexander. And I know that they are super proud of you and how you represent your alma mater so well. And so just thank you for sharing with us today. I wish we could keep this thing rolling forever, I know, but it's not practical. And but we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. So again, thank you, and may God continue to bless you and give you favor in what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this conversation that we had with alumni Jaren and Becca. This is a production of the Alumni Relations Office at Trinity Bible College and Graduate School here in Ellendale, North Dakota. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with them, and we encourage you to stay connected with us at trinitybiblecollege.edu/alumni, or follow us on social media by searching up Trinity Bible College. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you somewhere soon.